What would you say? I think one thing that I've always found really interesting about you and Joseph's paths with regards to balancing your 9 to 5 jobs, your careers as attorneys, your small business, the media, kids, IVF, all of this stuff, is I feel like you guys have an interesting balance of practicality with regards to, like, right before we were talking, you were like, well, we're probably going to sell our house at like this time 2022, and I was like, why? And she was like, well, because X, Y, and Z, public student loan, all this stuff. So there's that huge practicality in terms of, like, there's a real order and internal logic to things, and they're made at the right times, as right as you can get them. But then there's also this, like, huge level of optimism and ambition, and you kind of always strike me as someone who has the feeling that, like, good things will come. The business will grow. We'll make the money. We'll make it work. How do you keep that level of optimism, and how do you ground it in pragmatism with your choices?
Well, so I would say that I always ask myself, well, what's the alternative? Like what is, because I get that question a lot. Like, where do you find your drive and all of that? And I'm like, well, I only get one life. So I might as well try, because I know what's going to happen if I don't try. I'll just stay right here. So since I already know this, I can at least try these other things, and, fun things will happen. And I think at this point in my life, I've done so many crazy things, things that people thought I was crazy to do, like having a child at 18, buying my first house at 19, selling my house right before 2008. But it was like, who sells a house? Like, you have a perfectly good house. What do you mean you're selling your house to go move somewhere to go to law school? Where you don't even know what law school you're getting into and you're selling your house. I'm like, nope, this is going to happen. And then I got into Yale, right? So I've just found that, and it's not because things have never gone wrong, it's just that I'm committed to living my life fully. Like, I like to say that I'm going to live the hell out of my life. Like, when I look back, there is nothing that I'm going to look back on and say, damn, like, boy, did I waste that. It's like, no, I am, like, wringing every last bit that I can get out of these years that I have here. And so I find that really fun. Because there's so much that I want to do and experience. And in terms of keeping it practical, well, every single life change has a financial cost. Like, the currency of our lives is money, period. And so I always, when I think about my financial plans, the things that I'm looking to do, I break out my 1-year spending plan and I create projections. So when I decided to sell my house, and I said, okay, well, so I got into Yale. I also got into Stanford. At the time I was living in Virginia. Stanford is all the way in California. And so I'm comparing Yale and Stanford, two separate budgets. How much does housing cost? How much is it going to cost us to move out there? Every single decision that we make in life has a dollar attached to it. And so I ground my dreams in practicality by looking at, okay, well, what do I need to do to make this happen? And how much is it going to cost me? And then also, what are some backup plans that I can put in place in case that plan A and B and C did not work out?
It's so easy, I think, for most adults, for their professional life to feel just overwhelming, and everything feels high stakes, and every email and phone and meet, and it's just, you kind of never get off the hamster wheel. And I think it's important to remind yourself, like, let's say worst case scenario, I got laid off tomorrow. I would find a way to make it work, And I think that there's something really valuable in going to the logical end of your worst fears, because I think that most of what we are held back by are these suspicions of what could happen. But we never interrogate ourselves as, like, okay, well, say that happens. You would figure it out, or you would do X, or you would do Y. And I think just not letting yourself get so hung up on, because what's the saying? It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yes. Yeah, I do think that people let the fear of what if get in their way too much. And I love asking that question of, okay, well, if the worst did happen, then what am I going to do? And actually come up with a plan. And then you feel good. Then you feel like you have a safety net. But the other thing is that I like to say is to redefine success. So people they fear failure, and they define failure as not achieving that ultimate goal. And so basically the only way to be successful is to have that thing all the way at the end. But I say that you should redefine success as showing up every day as the person that you want to be and living your life the way that you want to live it, right? Not just because you feel stuck, but because this is what you actually want. And so what that does is it separates our actions, our daily actions, from the outcome, right? And because sometimes too, we can get so invested in the outcome that we reach this outcome and we realize that it actually wasn't this thing that we wanted. So if we pay closer attention to who we are showing up as every day, then we can make sure that we're staying on that right and better path. And we're not focused on the fear, we're focused on just that next step today.